Hey everyone, this is Daniela. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing the Who Am I book tag and answering the questions. I'll put them below in the description if anybody else wants to do the tag as well. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, question 1 says, if your life were a book genre, what would it be? Now, obviously I would love to say that my life would be science fiction or fantasy, something fun like that, but realistically talking, it would be just realistic fiction. Not like a romance, not a mystery, nothing too dramatic. Just, realistic fiction. Hopefully a little interesting, though. I think my life's interesting. All right, question 2. What villain from a book do you identify with the most? Now, if the question had said which antagonist do you identify with the most, I probably would have had an easier time coming up with an answer. Because, an antagonist is just someone who, works against the main character. They're not necessarily evil or something like that. But for me, villain implies that they're evil, that they have these evil plans. And I just don't usually identify with the villains like that in the books. Even if I'm reading a book where I understand that the villain is a well-written character, they have a great background, that sort of information. Although this isn't quite relating to a villain, one little fun fact is Voldemort and I have the same birthday. I remember reading Half-Blood Prince. There's a scene where Harry goes in the pensieve to kind of look at some memories related to Voldemort, and it's a scene where his mom goes to the orphanage and then she gives birth to him. And it's like, on New Year's Eve, Voldemort was born. And I was like, really? Okay, cool. That's fine. All right, so question number 3. What protagonist are you most similar to? So for me, in most of the books I read, well, maybe not most of them, but sometimes I can find ways that I relate to some of the protagonists, depending on who they are as a character. So I thought about it a little bit, and I came up with 2. One was Neville Longbottom from Harry Potter, and the reasons I kind of, identify with him has to do with the fact that, especially at the beginning of the series, he's not a very brave character. He's kind of shy. Some kids make fun of him a little bit, and when I was younger, elementary, middle school, sometimes kids would make fun of me. I was really shy. I kept to myself a lot, didn't feel very brave. And then with Neville, as the series goes on, he definitely gets more brave, gets more willing to do things, wants to stand up for himself and for his friends. And that's something, as I've grown up, I've been less shy, less timid. It's been easier for me to speak up and that sort of thing. And then the other protagonist I thought of was Liesl Meminger from The Book Thief. And while I definitely don't, completely relate to all of the experiences she had in the book, in her case, she had to go from, her hometown to stay with another family somewhere else in Germany. Her brother died. So she had, these experiences that I don't, but she was more reserved, kept to herself, preferred to just be with her books, and then slowly would connect with other people. And for me, I definitely, especially growing up, related to, I loved reading books, and sometimes I would prefer to kind of read books or just spend time on my own than to try and spend time with other people. All right, next question, number 4. Which book did you connect with in the past that you no longer do? I guess I had a hard time coming up with a book just because I couldn't necessarily remember a lot of the books that I read a long time ago, even several years ago, that maybe now, if I were to read it again, realize, oh, it might be problematic in certain ways. If I come up with something later, maybe I'll put it in the description. But I did think of the book A Wrinkle in Time, which I read when I was about 11 or 12, absolutely loved it, and then reread it this past year. And while I still really liked it, it definitely felt different and didn't really connect with me in quite the same way as when I was younger, just because of how it's written. It's for that younger age group. Number 5. What recent book did you read that you would love to be a character in? So the book I most recently read was Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman. It's various short stories, and one of them is called Black Dog, and it's set in the world of American Gods. So I think it would be fun to be in that a character in that story or that world, because I love American Gods. Another book I read recently was Small Gods by Terry Pratchett, and I think it would be fun to be a character in that story just because it's set on the Discworld, and I think that would be kind of a fun world to be in. All right, next question. Number 6, how do your reading habits show off your personality? So honestly, I don't read as much now as I used to when I was younger, but when I do read, I like to go on my own and just focus on the book and spend time getting into the book And I don't really like to have a lot of other things going on. Like, I'm not necessarily going to do something while I'm reading. And my general personality as well is I'm more introverted. Even if I'm not reading, I like spending time with either just myself or one or two other people. If there's some conversation going on, I might contribute to it, but I also just enjoy reading or listening to those conversations. So that's kind of how my reading habits reflect my personality. And the last question, number 7. What book taught you something about yourself? Now, there's definitely several, like, various books that I feel as I've read them, they've taught me something about myself. But I'm just going to go ahead and say Harry Potter has definitely taught me something about myself. It was definitely an important series for me growing up. I first read the series when I was 11 years old, and then waited for the books to come out throughout my middle school and high school years. And the last book came out after I graduated high school. And so throughout the series, I definitely felt connected to the characters and the different things that were happening, and felt like, yes, this is how I would react to the situation. These values are important to me, that I'm seeing these characters are important. And when I read the first book, I was like, I identify as a Gryffindor. I might not be very brave on the outside, but it's something that really is important to me. So those are the questions. Those are my answers. I'll put them in the description if you want to do this as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.